Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this video I'll be going through all the new rules for Kill Team Into the Dark for the new Killzone Gallowdark. I'll be going through the rules from the Into the Dark book and compressing all of the new rules into one video. You may have watched the videos I've made in the past for the walls and cover rules. I also did a video for Hatchway rules and then finally for close quarter rules. But now I'll be putting all those rules into one place so it's nice and easy for you to find the rules you need when you need them. Into the Dark has given us this new Killzone Gallowdark. Now this is played on a different size board. It's going to be a 607mm by 704mm area, and it's going to use those close quarter rules that we'll be covering in the third video. But there's also lots to consider as we fight through hatchways, manoeuvre around walls, and use that to our advantage with cover. There are no vantage points in Killzone Gallowdark either, so we've got to work our way around this terrain a little bit differently than we're maybe used to before. Right, let's get started with the walls. So all parts of a wall terrain feature have both the heavy and wall traits. And just as a reminder, the heavy terrain provides cover and is also obscuring. Some walls will have hatchways, and hatchways are treated as a separate terrain feature, and we'll be going into that in more detail in the next video. Operatives cannot move over or through wall terrain regardless of any other rules, other than as a result of the accessible trait, and the accessible trait is linked to hatchways, which we'll cover in the next video. Visibility lines cannot be drawn over or through wall terrain. And an operative is never a valid target if every cover line drawn to it crosses wall terrain. Range cannot be measured over or through wall terrain. You must measure around it using the shortest possible route. Now we've covered the wall terrain feature, let's have a look at some examples of cover terrain where walls are concerned. In this example, a cover line does not cross a corner or end of the wall. Therefore, the orc is not in cover. And note that minor parts of the wall that protrude do not make a corner or end alone. So this section of the wall here is not going to provide any cover. It must be the main structure of the wall that turns a corner or ends, and we'll have a look at that in some other examples now. Here we can see that a cover line crosses a corner of the wall, therefore the orc is in cover. But if the Space Marine moves slightly, you can now see that the cover line does not cross the corner of the wall because that Marine has moved past that corner, so now the orc is not in cover. If the Space Marine moved slightly more around that corner, you would see that the cover line would go over the corner of the wall again, and so that in that respect the orc would be in cover, but in this position it's not. In this next example we've got an end wall, and you can see that a cover line crosses the end wall, therefore the orc is in cover. This example is going to be a little bit different because we've got a hatchway. When the hatchway is closed, it's part of the wall, so it has the wall trait, but when it's open, it does not have the wall trait. When it's open, you can have visibility through it to the other side, and so you can draw the cover lines from the Marine to the orc. Even though the hatch is open, every other part of that wall still has the heavy and wall traits. In this example, one cover line goes from the Marine straight through the open hatchway to the orc, but another cover line will be going from the Marine through a wall then to the orc. So in this case, the orc would have cover. However, when the orc is more than white from the wall, the orc would also be obscured. That covers the Killzone Gallowdark walls, and we've looked at range and cover using a few examples. But now it's time to focus on the hatchways, so we're going to look at opening them, closing them, how to operate them as a new action, and access our operatives through them as well. As we covered in the previous video, a hatchway is part of a wall terrain. But the hatchway is also a terrain feature in its own right, and it has two statuses. Either it's closed or it's open. The hatchway has two parts, an access point and a hatch, and their traits depend upon the hatchway's status. Operatives can perform the Operate Hatch mission action to change its status. Let's start with the closed hatchway status, and a hatchway begins the battle closed. While a hatchway is closed, its hatch must be fully within its access point, and all parts of it have the heavy and wall traits that we went through in the previous video. Let's have a look at the Operate Hatch mission action. Now this is going to cost you 1 action point. An operative can perform this action while within black of a hatchway's access point. Open or close that hatchway. An operative cannot perform this action while within engagement range of an enemy operative, or if that hatchway is open and an enemy operative is within black of its access point. An operative can perform this action during a dash or normal move action, and any remaining increments of movement can be used after it does so. Note, however, that opening a hatchway can cause the operative to be within engagement range of an enemy operative, in which case that dash or normal move action would immediately end, unless the operative has any rules that allow it to move within engagement range of enemy operatives, for example, fly. If a hatchway status is changed and an operative placement would prevent the hatch from fully opening or closing, you can temporarily remove the operative from the kill zone, fully open or close the hatch, then return the operative or operatives to the kill zone as close as possible to their original location. If an operative is within an enemy operative's engagement range before a hatch is open, it must be returned within engagement range of that enemy operative after the hatch is opened. Now let's look at the open hatchway. While a hatchway is open, there's 3 things to consider. The first is its hatch must be fully open. It cannot be ajar. Number 2, its access point has the accessible trait. Number 3, its hatch has the wall trait. Let's have a look at accessible now. An operative can move through the walls up to black adjacent to this access point as if they were not there, so long as at least part of its base would move through this access point when it does so. An operative cannot finish a move in or on an access point. As an operative must finish a move in a location it can be placed, it must finish the move wholly on one side or the other of this terrain feature. An open hatchway's access point does not provide cover, nor is it obscuring. The walls either side of the access point or its hatch must be used for this instead. So I hope all that makes sense. It's quite wordy, as are most of the kill team rules, so let's have a look at a few examples so we can just make it a little bit clearer. Here you can see the Marine's base is wider than the open hatchway's access point. It can move through the wall terrain up to black either side of the open access point, so long as part of its base moves through the open hatchway's access point. In this example, our Marine has been joined by his buddy who's potentially impeding him. But they can move through the wall terrain up to black to the right of the open hatchway's access point, so long as part of its base moves through the access point and does not move through the impeding operative. This is actually a really neat rule, and so it really helps you to get your operatives through and saves a lot of fuss. And so I think once you've played this a few times, it totally makes sense and works really well. Let's do a couple more examples and ramp things up a bit. Here we've got 2 Marines who are potentially impeding this 3rd Marine. As he cannot move through the open hatchway's access point without moving through those friendly Marine operatives, it means that Marine cannot make the move. Let's have a look at charging through a hatchway now. So our Marine wants to charge, but the Orc is impeding its move through the middle of the open hatchway. It can move through the wall terrain up to black to the left of the open hatchway's access point, so long as part of its base moves through that access point and does not move through the Orc. So in this case, the Marine can make the charge. Now we've made the charge, we need to fight, and we'll cover hatchway fighting rules in the next video. That covers the rules for hatchways, and there's a few other pieces of terrain that we can briefly look at in this video before we move on to the next one and focus on the close quarters. So let's have a quick look at ancient apparatus. I've got to say, I'm not keen on the word apparatus. I just don't even know if I'm saying it properly, but here we go. Ancient apparatus terrain features have the heavy and traversable traits, and you'll see dynamos, power panels, pipes, control panels, and tanks. Some missions will require operatives to control these ancient apparatus terrain features, and some will even specify certain types, for example the pipes. In these missions, those terrain features are treated as objective markers, except that a friendly operative controls it while within black of it, and if the total APL characteristic of friendly operatives within black of it is greater than that of enemy operatives within black of it. If an operative must perform an action at an ancient apparatus terrain feature it controls, and it controls more than one, you must select one for that action. Now let's have a look at pipes. So we've got two different pipes, the overhead and the broken. The overhead pipe has the insignificant trait, while the broken pipe has the light and traversable trait. That just leaves the really awesome Gallowdark Barricades. So Gallowdark Barricades are variant barricades designed to fit with the theme of Space Hulks. They are normally barricades for all rules purposes, meaning they have the light and traversable traits. That now covers the hatchway and terrain rules for the new Gallowdark Killzone. It's time to look at the close quarter rules. The new close quarter rules are going to give us some new actions. There's two altogether. One is guard and one is hatchway fight. We're also going to get some additional rules called condensed environment, barricades and tacops. So let's have a look at the two actions first. Let's start with the guard action first. This is going to cost 1 AP, and the operative goes on guard and is on guard until any of the following are true. It performs a guard action or any actions excluding pass. An enemy operative ends an action within engagement range of it and it does not make a guard attack. Its order is changed to conceal, or if it is the end of the turning point. The guard action is treated as a shoot action. An operative cannot perform this action if it has a conceal order or while within engagement range of an enemy operative. Let's have a look at what we can do when on guard. Once during each enemy operative's activation, after that enemy operative performs an action, you can interrupt that activation and select one friendly operative who's on guard to make one of the following guard attacks. You can perform an Overwatch action, you can perform a free fight action, or you can perform point blank Overwatch. If an operative performs point blank Overwatch, it performs an Overwatch action with the following additional rules. It can perform an Overwatch action while within engagement range of an enemy operative, and the enemy operative within its engagement range is the target regardless of any other rules. Also, until the end of the interrupted enemy operative's activation, each time that friendly operative fights in combat, do not select melee weapons or roll attack dice for it during that combat. Now let's have a look at Hatchway Fight, and this action will cost you 1 action point. This action is treated as a fight action, and an operative can perform this action if all of the following is true. It is not within engagement range of an enemy operative, its base is touching an open hatchway's access point, and an enemy operative is blocking that access point. An enemy operative is blocking that access point if it is on the other side and within white of that access point, as shown here. Now you fight in combat with the active operative against an enemy operative blocking that access point. In the select valid target step of that combat, that enemy operative is now a valid target. That's all we need to know for the Hatchway fight, so now let's have a look at the additional rules, starting with the condensed environment. Close quarters amplifies the impact of certain weapons, but the low ceilings and level floors mean targeting enemy operatives must be more direct. Weapons with the Blast X, Splash X and or Torrent X special or critical hit rules now gain the lethal 5+ special rule. Each time a friendly operative makes a shooting attack with a weapon that has the indirect special rule, you must choose whether or not to use that special rule. If you choose to use it, that weapon gains the range blue special rule for that shooting attack. Each time a friendly operative makes a shooting attack against an enemy operative, if a cover line drawn to that enemy operative crosses one or more operatives with an engage order, and that's excluding operatives with a wounds characteristic of 5 or less, and friendly operatives whose bases are touching the active operatives. In the roll attack dice step of that shooting action, roll 1 less attack dice. In this example, the Marine is making a shooting attack against the Orc. A cover line crosses a friendly Marine which has an engage order, but as its base is touching the Marine who is shooting, it is ignored. But a cover line also crosses this other enemy Orc, but that has a conceal order, and so this time the shooting attack is unaffected. Now let's have a look at barricades, and when using the close quarters rules, barricades are set up differently. They can be set up anywhere in the kill zone, that is, more than red from your opponent's drop zone, more than white from access points, more than white from other barricades, but not on a terrain feature unless that terrain feature has the insignificant trait. And finally, we've got tacops. When using the close quarters rules, the following tacops are not in use: seize ground, hold the line, sabotage, and vantage. If this would mean you cannot build a 6-card tacops deck, for example you don't have any faction tacops, you can select the number of cards needed to complete your deck from one of the other archetypes your kill team has access to. And in match play, if they do not have any other archetypes, you can simply select the needed cards from any one other archetype. That now covers all the rules you need to know to play this KILLZONE GALLOWDARK, and I hope you found this video helpful and enjoyed working your way through parts 1, 2 and 3 of KILLZONE GALLOWDARK. What an awesome set this is, and I hope this helps you enjoy your game even more. If you haven't ordered your box set for Into the Dark yet, but would like to, then please check out my sponsor Firestorm Games. I'll put a link in the description down below that will take you to their website, where you can save up to 20% on Into the Dark, Shadow Vaults, and all your hobby products from paint, models, across all different game systems. It'd be awesome if you check out that link, as you'll also support the channel and I'll get a small commission from every sale made. If you'd like to see more content about Into the Dark, then check out my unboxing video. Then I go through how to build the Kroot Farstalkers and the build option for the Navy Breachers. Once you've seen that, you might want to start preparing your terrain before you paint it. And then after that, I've got a how to paint the terrain to a quick and easy tabletop ready standard. I've also covered how to paint the barricades in 2 different ways, and then on top of that you might want to paint your gauges too, so I show you how you can do it for your favourite faction or chapter, or go the traditional route and paint it in this metallic effect. And with everything painted, it's time to get playing, so if you haven't seen all the rules for the core game yet, then please check out my How to Play series, where I go through everything you need to know to start playing the game. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please hit the like button, subscribe for more videos like this one, and don't forget to hit that notification bell too to join me next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'd like to say a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters who make these daily videos possible, and if you're interested in joining the community, it'd be awesome to see you there, and I'll put a link for that in the description down below.